Okay, good morning everyone. Let me start with my introduction. My name is Abhishek Patel and I am the head of the Databricks CEO in the LTI, looking over the Databricks accelerators and the architectures, best practices. So in today's sessions, we are going to go through the data mesh. Many of you would have heard the buzzword data mesh. It's a decentralized data platform architecture. Just to be clear, in these sessions, we'll touch base on some of the aspect of the data mesh, but we'll not be going through on the actual data mesh principles and deep dive into it. Rather, we'll focus on how do we realize this data mesh on the Databricks platform. We have the accelerator called Alcazar, which will get you going in a matter of minutes to hours, and start creating, spinning up the data products and start publishing it to the marketplace. So that's the intent of this sessions, and in the interest of time, we'll take the questions at the end in the last 5 minutes. So we'll get started with that. Simple agenda. We'll go through some of the data mesh pointers, just to set the context what data mesh is and what we are going to achieve in this particular session. Followed by why we would want to do the data mesh on the Databricks. How does the Databricks Lakehouse complements the data mesh, and how it can help make it a reality. And then we will go with the actual accelerator demo. We'll just quickly create a domain we have, and then we'll create a data product on the fly. We will on the fly publish it to the marketplace. And just to be clear, the marketplace that I'm talking about is an internal marketplace to publish your data product. It's not the Databricks marketplace as such. And then finally, we'll see how consumer can easily navigate to your data product and subscribe to it. I've already gone through my introductions. So what is data mesh, right? As I've already said, it's a decentralized data platform architecture. It's completely opposite, or in a sense, very different than your centralized data warehouse concept, right? There were some bottlenecks with the data warehouse. Then the data lake came. It has the bottleneck by not having the functionality that data warehouse is providing. Now the data mesh is trying to compensate, both of those challenges. So it has basically 4 principles. When I say the decentralized way, it's like you can assume, or you can imagine that sales people would have their own space to work on. Marketing people would have their own space to work on. HR will have their own space to work on. We call that space where an individual organization or the unit is working as a domain. So that's where the data mesh starts. It's all the domains that you create first. And then every domain, once the sales people have their own domain, they will have their own business logic. They'll create their own product or a data product. So we are converging the data from being an asset in the legacy system to being a product which you can easily monetize, which you can easily publish and you can subscribe to. So that's the second pillar of it, domain, the data product. The third part is the self-service infrastructure. Now we are empowering the end user or the domain per se to create their product and quickly spin those, right? So there need to be an acceleration also providing the infrastructure that they need. With the legacy way of doing it, it's not going to work. So we need to create a self-service infrastructure platform wherein the domain themselves can go and provision what they need to do and can accelerate their journey of the data product. And finally is the federated computational governance. Now by enabling this self-service, to the domain owners, there is a risk that there may not be a proper governance, or the data could be exposed. There are no data privacy. There are so many issues that come, right? So to mitigate that risk, we have the fourth pillar, which is the federated computational governance. Now, why is it called federated computational governance, right? Data governance. Federated means it is uniform. It has to be embedded in your overall solution. It should not be an option, or it should not be a choice for a domain owner to work with it. And why computational is, it has to work on the fly. When the domain owners, they are churning the data product, they are doing something, it has to compute whether they are within the acceptable governance model of the organization or not. And if not, we need to stop it, right? That's why the federated computational governance. So these are the 4 pillars: domain, data product, self-service data infrastructures, and the federated computational governance. In the demo, we'll basically focus on the last 2 pillars, which we have the self-service infrastructure platform, and we will create the data product and we will publish that. I already mentioned there are direct advantages to it. One is the data monetization. You can create your data product. You can monetize with the internal or the external customers. The faster go to market, you are empowering your domain people to go and create their own data product. You don't have to wait for the central IT team to fulfill their requirement, right, which used to be the bottleneck in the legacy era. So it's a faster go to market. Data quality assurance, because of the federated computational governance and the policies around the overall solution, you are rest assured that the quality of your data would be higher than what it used to be in your legacy platform. Single source of truth. For example, sales team may have their own domain. They will create their own KPIs, and the definition of their KPI will be the final definitions across the organizations. So if sales has defined a KPI, a particular KPI, the other unit within the organization should use that data product and should use that own KPI, that same KPI. They do not have to, or usually people get the data, they create their own definition of the KPI, right? That's not going to happen. And finally, the uniform governance enforcement, because of the fourth pillar that you have seen. Before we go into the Databricks specific and why the data mesh on Databricks, this is how the data mesh looks like. It's a logical diagram. You see there will be a domain. There will be a domain 1, domain 2, domain N, all the different domains. Things like sales, marketing, HR, all budgeting and all the different units that you have in your organization, churning their own or producing their own data product. And there is a central IT team. Now, the question would be, if I'm empowering the business owner, what would the IT do? So central IT team is actually a central node which connects all your domain. The central IT team will provide you the self-service infrastructure. It will enforce the computational governance. It will govern the overall council for the governance. So the central IT team will empower you. But in the legacy era, where the central IT team was also responsible for doing the development, that goes away. That we are pushing onto the domain. We'll take it at the end of the session. Thank you. Now, how do we implement on the Databricks? Why? So we map the characteristics of the Lakehouse with the Databricks. If you can assuming, if you can imagine what I've just explained, you have a different business unit. They would have a different data product. They could have a data product which is analytical on a big volume of data. Or they could have a data which is on the real time. The events are coming, right? So you can see, and some might prefer GCP, some might prefer AWS, different multi-cloud support, right? Some could be having a transactional data product, which is the asset. So Lakehouse supports all these characteristics, right? It supports the multi-cloud. It supports the asset transactions. The Delta Lake itself is capable of doing the analytical, workload. The schema enforcement that you can do, so you can make sure that a particular domain, you enforce a particular schema on it. SQL endpoints. Now, we are empowering the business users. They may not be as technical as you would think. So how do we do it? The simplest way of enabling is the SQL. So with the SQL endpoint, they can write a SQL, consume their data product, makes it easy, right? We are decoupling the storage. Don't have to worry about that's how the Databricks works. Databricks do the multi-file format support. Some domain may want Parquet, some may want CSV, some may want XYZ. All this is supported, right? There is a support for the different data types. Every domain would have their own needs. Streaming support. Some might have a data product which is like a real-time streaming, maybe a fraud analytics or something that they want to consume on a real time. If something is coming, they want to assess it, right? Streaming support. And finally, the unified platform with the vision that Databricks has, right? Everything you have to do it. If you can assume the same thing if you want to do it on Azure or AWS, there are multiple services, right? There is a data lake, there is an ADLS, there is an event hub for your events. There's a Synapse for your RDBMS. There are different services that you need to incorporate to achieve this. Well, with the Databricks, it's a single platform. You don't have to worry about it. It comes all together. So these are the characteristics of the Lakehouse, which kind of makes it a good choice to implement a data mesh. And this is the in the context of demo, how usually you approach the data mesh. So first thing, as you can see, you need to first define a clear domains. What are my domains are? These are the business unit, or this could be the logical units within a business unit, but they need to be an independent entity. So that's the first one. Once that is done, the second one is personas. What kind of different personas we have, and I'll come to that slide in a minute. But there are different personas that we need to assign for each specific kind of workload. Federated computational governance, as I said, we don't want to give it a free run. So there has to be a proper model of what the governance model should look like. You need to define those. That's the third step. The biggest complexity is involved in doing the self-service infrastructure provisioning, right? So you need to create a platform, and we'll see that that's what we have achieved. But you need that platform to enable the the domain owners to do their own work. Finally, you are creating a domain, you are giving them the space, but there has to be a data ops platform like DBT or others where they can go and do the development in accelerated fashion, right? So that's a very important aspect of the overall implementation. And finally, you have created a data product. Well, good. How are you going to monetize it? How are you going to publish it? How people will consume it? So there needs to be a marketplace where people can go and you can just publish your data product there. It's just think of a Netflix. You just go there, you browse the movies. Every movie has their own characteristics. Similarly, data product will have its own characteristics, which will enable the consumer to assess whether this data product is suitable for him or not, and finally consume the data products. So these are the different steps. Moving on to it, before I actually deep dive into it, I'll just go through. This is the last slide before we go into the actual demo. But there are 4 personas. There's a provisioner, owner, developer, and consumer. The name suggests, or it's self-explanatory, right? What is the provisioner? That's a central IT team guy. He is enabling you to create your domain. He is creating the domain, and that's a starting point. The owner is actually part of the domain itself. It's an admin per se, in a very simple terms, for that particular domain, and he can manage his own domain. Which developer need to have access to what to publish, if developer wants to publish something to the marketplace, whether it needs to be published or not. And if the consumer request comes, if someone wants to subscribe to a data product, he will assess and will see whether I need to grant the access and approve that subscription or not. Developer is just a developer, is creating all the data product. And finally, the consumers. Consumer could be anybody in your organization. He needs to go to your marketplace, browse your product, and there you go. He need to subscribe it and start using it, right? He do not have to reinvent the wheel, per se. And these are the 6 points. We will just quickly go through that. I'm not going to spend some time, but the demo is in 6 steps. First is defining the domain. We will do the data product. We will create the data product. Then we'll register it. We will approve the data product. It will be seen in the marketplace. And finally, the consumer will subscribe to the data marketplace, right? So let me just quickly go through the actual demo. So this is the accelerator that we have built. And as you can see, it has the marketplace. We'll touch base on that. That's where the data products are published and consumed from. And you have the different personas. As I have mentioned, right, you have the owner, the provisioner, the owner, and the developer. Each comes with their own set of responsibilities, its own sets of workload that they need to do, right? So quickly going through that, right, if you are a domain owner, as a domain owner, I'm logging in it, and what the domain owner will do, he will create the domain. So a sales team comes, marketing comes, he say, I want to be part of the data mesh. Okay, he will create his own domain. And what the domain translates into the technical term for the, or technical aspect of the Databricks is the workspace. So whenever we are creating a domain, basically we are spinning up a workspace, and we are giving necessary rights on those workspace to the owner, only the owner. And then owner in turn now is empowered. Owner is part of the domain itself, as I mentioned. He is now empowered to further delegate the access to whoever he wants and do whatever is needed within the domain, right? In the interest of time, we have already created the domain, so you can actually look at the different domains that are created, and finally, once the domain is created, you can grant the access to that particular domain to the owner. So this first step, what we are doing is we are creating the workspace, and we are delegating the access to the domain owner. That's all the provisioner needs to do, the central IT team needs to do in terms of implementing the data mesh. creating the self-service infrastructure, this platform, doing the federated computational governance, embedding that, all that is done by the central IT team. But in terms of actually creating the data product, the central IT team is just creating the domain and handing it over to the owner. And then, the domain owner can look at the different aspect of, the provisioner can always look at, how my domain is doing, how much they are consuming, right? What is the usage look like? All those things, they can look at it. The provisioner can keep a tap on it just to make sure, there is no abuse or, there's no improper use of the domain that is created. And you will see all the different aspects of it. So provisioner basically is provisioning it and just giving it to the owner. I'm going to the next, which is the owner. Owner has a lot of responsibility, as you can think, right? But again, just to reiterate, is not part of the central IT team. He's part of the domain itself. This necessitates, it's now, because it's the owner and it's a technical, we expect it to be a technical guy. So that's why it's called the socio-technical paradigm, right? The data mesh, that's how it is explained. So the domain is already created, right, for the owner. So we have already created that domain. So what, and an owner can have, he can be an owner of multiple domain, or a domain can have a multiple owner, both way, right? What he can do, he can further go and, add the developer. So now the domain is created, owner is there. The next step is I need to enable developer to come use my domain and start creating the data product. So this is where he'll come, he will assign the accesses. Again, in the interest of time, certain prerequisite has already been done. Feel free to reach out to us. We can have an end-to-end demo if it is needed. And then this is the administrative aspect of it, right? The owner would decide. So these are the policies that owner has created and enforced, right? This is the computational governance comes into the picture. Owner will actually create the cluster and will assign the permissions, right? We are not enabling developer to go and create whatever cluster they would like, right? So we are putting some checks and balances here. The notebooks, there are some critical notebooks, some proprietary notebook. So the domain owner will decide in his particular domain which developer will have access to what notebooks. So we are just completely providing all the secure way. Jobs, SQL endpoints, as I said, we are enabling the SQL endpoints for the easy consumers, right? We will touch base on this, the real demo will just start in a bit. I just wanted to give you the glance of what the owner's responsibility are. So he is assigning the developer to his own domain and he's creating all the most of the admin work in terms of the governance. The last two tab, right, here if you see, right, and we will see in a live, that when the data product is published or the request for the publish is submitted, owner will see that here, that my developer wants to publish some data product. He can approve or reject from here. Once he approves, it will automatically go to the marketplace. If he rejects, it won't. And the final is the subscription. So the data, and again, we'll just give me a second, we'll go through in detail on that. But the final one is the approval. Your data product is already published. Someone wants to consume it. Should I approve that consumption or should I not, right? Because data marketplace is just a sneak preview, just in a Netflix analogy, just a trailer of the movie. It's not a movie itself. So here you can do the approve, right? Now, once the developer has been granted the access, right? I'm just going directly to the DBT. This is the DataOps platform. So just to recap, we have created a domain. The domain provisioner has granted access to the domain owner. Domain owner itself has created the other logistics like servers and clusters and all. And he has delegated access to the actual developer who is going to do that. Now, this is the DataOps platform. As you would have seen or you would have heard, DBT is the, I guess, global data processing partner of the year for Databricks. So we are, it just happened that, we have chosen DBT as a DataOps platform for this demo. Now, what the DBT provides, right? The DataOps platform needs to do at least three things. Develop, deploy, and test. And the DBT does all these three things, right? It has the ability to do the CI/CD, which is your deploy. You can create a test cases here, which will run against your entire data or model or the entire project, and we'll see whether it satisfies your needs or not. And you can do the development, of course. So we have created some scripts here. it can, the other good part about it, it does the lineage, say new developer is coming and taking it over, you can see where the data is flowing, how the data is flowing, right? So here the actual fun begins. I'm just going to create a new data product. I'm just going to run this entire chain. So imagine, right, again, in the interest of time, we have this ready, but the developer has come, the fourth step, and he has written all these scripts, and he's creating the data product, which is the final table in this sense. In our context, we are creating a data product which has the product details with the reviews that, from the Amazons and other e-commerce platform and other logistics. So the marketing team and other team can look into the data product, assess how their product is doing compared to the other products in the market, right? So as you can see, the data product is almost being created, which is the final table using the DBT. And again, just to iterate, we have chosen DBT to do develop, deploy, and test. So all the CI/CD, all the data operation aspect is taken care by this product. So as you can see, the final step is done. The data product is created. Now, how to monetize it, right? We said data as a product, not as an asset. So developer has created this data product, and the final step is the publishing this data product, right? So what is going to happen is developer now is going to, so we have looked at the provisioner, we have looked at the owner. Owner has enabled the developer to create a data product. He has done his development. He has created a product. Now I want to publish it to the actual data marketplace where consumer can come and subscribe, right? So the developer is assigned a particular domain. Now he has created a product, right? So I'm just going to publish, or I'm going to register my data product, which will be published by the owner, because owner holds the key, whether I need to let it further flow or should I stop it, right? So here I'm just going to put the, quickly, the data product that is created. I'll just give, all the metadata that I need, right? A test, demo product, and then default. I go to next. The data product name, I will just say product data. What is the type? It's a Databricks table, so I'm just going to say it's a Databricks table. You can give the tags for easy searching. And then, because I'm going to publish this, I need to be careful about the columns that I publish. I need to mask the data. By the way, just a little detour. We have integrated the Unity Catalog delta sharing, the Unity Catalog capability of data masking. Everything is already embedded here. So as you can see, there are certain attributes like the sales value. I don't want to display on the marketplace because it is accessible to everybody, right? So I'm just going to add this column. I'm just going to say, OK, deploy, and I'm just say, OK. Request is submitted. So now, if you are still with me, the developer has created a data product. He has done its development. He wants to publish his product to the development, right, or to the marketplace. Guess where request has gone? It has gone to the owner, right? Because he is the ultimate decision maker. So just in a second. Every now and then domain owner logs in and he says, okay, what do I have in my key? Now the owner, if you see, we have the product data, right? This request has already come to the owner for an approval. So whether I need to publish it or not. So I'll say, okay, or I'll first take a preview. What does it look like? Domain owner may not have the idea what this look like. So it gives a sneak preview of, okay, this is what the data product, this is what he wants to do. Maybe it's okay. Let me go and approve. So now he's approving. So now once it is approved, see the data product was still local to the Databricks. It was not available to anyone. Once he's approves, we'll just see in a bit that in the marketplace it will be available. Anybody can go and now see this product and consume, right? The other important aspect of it, okay, I've published it. It's still the domain who has decided what I want to publish. But how do I trust the data product? That is the reason, there is a need for a counseling or a, governance counseling team or an audit team when you implement a data mesh, who in turn would do, further audit and see what KPIs you have defined, whether they are as per the organization's guidelines or not. What you are doing, whether it is within the purview or within the acceptable norms of the organization or not, right? All those logistics. So usually once it is in the marketplace, either it is trusted or not trusted. And what we are saying it, for the data product to be trustable, there has to be an external entity which needs to audit your product and see, okay, it is good. It's like an IMDb in the Amazon Prime Video. What is the rating looks like, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, oh, what? Audit compliance team has audited it and it looks good. I'm going to trust this product. Looks very good. So they're done. And so now what has happened, what we have done so far? We have created a domain. We have given that domain to the owner. Owner has added the developer. Developer has created a data product using the DBT. And now he has requested publish, and the data product is published. This is where the marketplace come to the picture, right? Marketplace is open to everybody in the entire organization. It's just a browsing portal, right? And again, reiterating, this marketplace is not the Databricks marketplace. This is the data mesh marketplace for the internal consumptions, right? So when you land in, it says, okay, how many data products we have and all those things, right? I'll just quickly go through the data product that we created, right? It didn't exist maybe 10 minutes ago. So now you see that product is available. In last 10-15 minutes, we created this product. The product is available. Now I'm wearing a hat of a consumer or a final subscriber. I'm coming to the marketplace, looking at this, browsing this marketplace. Okay, I need some data, whether the product already exists or not. So I can see, oh yeah, there is this product. So data to be called as a product, it has at least 8 characteristics to be fulfilled to be called as a data product. It has to have observability, discoverability, the overview, the trust element to it, the definition of it, the metadata of it, right? All these character needs to be met. And this is where you will see all these characters. So remember, I did the trusted. So this is the green checkbox. This makes the consumer feel that, I can blindly go and use this because it is trusted by the external entity. It is already audited, right? How many rows it has, what the pattern looks like. If you can give the rating, you can give the feedback, or if you're already a consumer and if you are facing any issue, you can report the incident as well, right? So you can see, what the overview looks like. It will immediately show you, okay, this is what the sample data looks like. Remember the sales value? We had actually masked it. So you see that particular column is completely masked. The Unity catalog is taking care of it. It's a sensitive column. I don't want to give you this access until I actually approve the subscription for this data product to you, because this is open to everybody, right? So this is all taken care of. And the data product, it's not usable if it is not refreshed, right? If it was refreshed 6 months back or 2 years back, why would I need it, right? That's an important characteristics of the data product. So I see what is the refresh rate look like. So okay, it is refreshed as of today. It refreshes every day. So it's a good data product. It refreshes every day. I should consume it. Trust. Yes, this is trust scores looks high. It's an AI part of it based on the report incidents that are reported and other logistics. And finally, yeah, it is approved by the external audit committee. It's good to go. And then you will get recommendations also. If you are looking at it, probably these are the other data product you want to look. So as me, right, as a consumer, I don't have any access to it still, right? I browse the data product. I said, you know what? I want to subscribe to this data product. Okay, I have sent a request to the subscription. Guess who approves it? The owner, right? So when the owner goes to his console, you see, wow, now someone called Abhishek Patel wants to subscribe to this particular product data. Should I approve it or not? Now, because once I approve it, he will have access to this data. He can do whatever, he can do whatever means in terms of read. He can read the data. He cannot manipulate, change the data. but he will have access to the data, right? I'll say, okay, you know what? Maybe this request I know, I will approve it. So he approves it. And the final consumer would be notified that, your request has been approved. This is the data product, and this is how you will access your data product. So I've been granted the access. My Outlook is switched off, but in this sense, it will actually send an email to me with all the details about that data product. And there you go. It is done. So just to recap, right? So the Alcazar accelerators that what we have built, what we have done is we have created a domain. And you can create, you see it's all embedded, it's all self-service. So the self-service and governance, both part are embedded. So you can immediately create a domain. We have created a domain. We have onboarded the developer. They created a data product. We have published, and now people started consuming it. So that's the beauty about the data mesh, decentralized socio-technical paradigm, new data platform architecture that we want to accomplish. Before I close, just a word of caution. The data mesh is not for everyone, right? You need to assess it. It needs a lot of, I would say, mindset change, or a lot of checks need to do. It's not a replacement for a data warehouse. It's not a replacement for a data lake. That's a legacy mistake. When the data lake, big data came, people wanted to move data warehouse to the data, the big data. They were complementary. They were not a replacement. When the data lake came, same thing happened. So you want to caution that people should not be doing the same thing with the data mesh. It's not a replacement of the data mesh. See, you need to be, as I said, the domain now has to have a technical team because they do everything. They want a go-to-market strategy to be faster. You have to have your developer. You need to have the technical skills. Now the data is treated as a product and not an asset. So that's a big mindset change in the organization. How you look at the data, how you consume the data, right? The complexity, that is interoperability, right? It's called mesh because there's a data product this domain is producing. He is using that data product, this data product. So if you can envision, it's creating a mesh. And if you are not careful, it won't take long to become a data mess. So we need to be really careful about it. There is a trade-offs. People are used to with the centralized, unified data warehouse. It's no more a real, like this is completely decentralized. And finally, the complexity that you need in the self-service. I hopefully made it look easy to create a domain and product and subscribe it, but it takes a lot to create such kind of an infrastructure platform, right? So certain 2 cents from our side that you need to have a thorough analysis, thorough strategy before you move on to the data mesh. So with that, I'll open up the questions. If you have any, this is all I wanted to share. I hope this is helpful, this is insightful. And any questions that you have, probably I'll take it. And if you don't have time now, we'll take it later on also. Thank you, guys. Yeah. You have a question? Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, if I can. The first one, congratulations, because this is the most complete and practical implementation of data mesh
Thank you.
So far.
Thank you for that.
The first question is, if I haven't understood how the product is shared with the consumer. So what do you pass? If it is a table, you pass a link to the table that they can use as a basis for a Power BI dashboard, for example, or do you pass the static table?
So there are different ways. So there's I'll just flash the screen. I'm not going to go through that, just so that you also understand. There are different model, how the data will be consumed. In our example, it's a table. So we will enable the delta share. We'll put a delta share on it, and the delta share, what it does, it gives you the config files, which you then take it. So we'll give that config files, which is good for maybe 3 months to 6 months, whatever they need, to the consumer. And then consumer can use in the Power BI. Power BI, by the way, latest version, you would see a new data source type called delta share, where you upload these config files in UDF. So that config files will enable you to consume the data whichever way you want. The other way is, you may have an event hub somewhere. So data, if it's a real-time use case, you just publish there, give access to that event hub. So there are different ways, based on the use cases.
Thank you. manage the costs in order to reverse the costs to the consumers. Otherwise, this means that the owner has to pay for every kind of request and keep the clusters up and running 24/7 and maybe even sized to support big requests.
Good question. So you see, right, we already have the element. Maybe I forgot to emphasize on one aspect when you create a domain. When you create a domain, one of the metadata we ask is a cost center and the business unit that explicitly for a chargeback. And we are projecting an approximate cost monthly for this particular data product. So if I have your cost center, I have the charge, I will charge you, but how do I arrive at it, right? It needs a little bit of understanding when I'm creating a data product. I know. See, Delta Share does not need a compute directly. You need not have a dedicated compute. So if you're enabling from the Delta Share, you're good in that front. But you still need to account for the data processing that you are doing. So it would depend on the type of data churning that I'm doing, the cluster that it takes to create that final table, right? I will assess that, and based on that, I'll do some algorithm, some computation to arrive at monthly cost. But if you see, it's right at the top when you go and trying to consume. So this is what it's going to cost you. For an internal customer, maybe it could be free because it's the same organization, but for external consumer, it could cost you. Yeah. Go ahead.
In your experience with data mesh, which types of companies in terms of structure, the last slide you should beware, it's not for everybody. In your experience, where do you see it?
So we see a lot of CPG clients and all. And again, it's a I would say pattern that is emerging, right? See, so for you to adopt to the data mesh, you need to be exceptionally good at data warehouse and data lake. You would have done that, precisely the way it should have been done. So if your maturity, and we see a big customer, Fortune 500 people who are like well there in terms of the architectures or the way that they consume the data. They know the data warehouse, the distinction between data warehouse, big data, and data lake, and they have this need. And the use cases, right? Go to market. If they are suffering with the go to market, they want to speed it up. Those are the clients. But we see some big giants are thinking about it seriously. Yep. I hope that answers your question. It's not a perfect black and white answer, but
No, there isn't. I wasn't expecting this thing is very...
It's very new. It's still evolving. Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry, I kept you hold for questions so long.
I appreciate your approach for governance and personas that would be monitoring the handling the mesh.
Thank you.
Coming to the technical side of things, currently Dremio, Starburst, they have another vision of how you should be handling the mesh in terms of connectivity, spinning up your own clusters. How do you approach the product owner or the centralized admin team setting up that technical connections to your federated environment in order to support federated querying at the DBT level, which you
See, good question, by the way. So in the beginning, see, that's why I've explained, right? What is the advantage why I want to do into the Databricks? Because it's a unified platform, right? Deviating little away from implementing with the Databricks, right? Now, the complexity is just going to get increased. I've already mentioned if you want to implement on the Azure, you don't have a single service to do all these things. You may have a domain which would subscribe to ADLS, maybe Synapse, SQL Server, ADF, all those things, right? Now, if you're bringing the external like Dremio and all into the context, right? That's where one of the pillar, be aware, right? If that is your technology landscape, then you would have a bigger complexity and challenges integrating those with your self-service infrastructure. It's not easy, but it's not difficult. Now, why it's not difficult? Because every other tool or technology has the APIs. So it's just a matter of having the subject matter expert which knows the Dremio and what it offers, the virtualization. And for my particular organization, for my kind of virtualization, what kind of API I need to integrate? How do I accomplish it, right? So it needs a lot of thought process. As I said, you introduce more and more external entities, it gets more and more complex. And that's why we have done it on the Databricks, and we feel that it would be the simplest way to approach. I think that's, thanks for your time. Thanks for spending few minutes, and I can address your questions offline also. Thank you.